How do the pelvic floor, the diaphragm, and the ab muscles help when we're going to the toilet?
Yes, I guess understanding that they actually just have a relationship. So your diaphragm and your pelvic floor, basically one sits above the other. So your diaphragm sits above the pelvic floor and the abdominal muscles sort of wrap around. So they're kind of viewed as this sort of inner core unit of the body. And basically they just respond. So the whole muscular system of our body works together to move us or to help with function. So essentially, as you breathe and get the diaphragm moving, the pelvic floor naturally relaxes. And actually, your abdominal generally wall also relaxes. And then as you exhale, the diaphragm goes up and you get this recoil reaction of the pelvic floor and the abdominal wall. So that's where there's this understanding that if you kind of breathe and you relax, it will naturally help those muscles to also relax. So does how do we translate that to the toilet? I guess it comes back to that. Yes, if we're sort of rushing or we're slightly more kind of high-toned people or we're more type A, sometimes having a moment to just have a breath, it can help us connect with relaxing the pelvic floor. And as we've mentioned, the relax of the pelvic floor is key in allowing that sort of initiation of a bowel movement. So that's kind of the kind of relationship of them all, and that's happening all day, every day, much, without our awareness. So it's just understand there is a connection, and that can be helpful for some people.
What habits are we doing currently as a society that we shouldn't be in relation to toilet health and poo health?
Yeah, I mean, I think the shame of it a lot is all still such a problem. And I see this in children. And I think this is where a lot of adult issues, actually, when we sit in clinic and we talk about it, which is why I'm passionate to treat children, it tracks way back, decades back sometimes. I see it in my own children. So I've got three children of different ages, but I've got two that are at primary school. And even the children at primary school are saying, oh no, we don't want to poo at school. Oh, that's disgusting.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So there is already this narrative around toileting and shaming. Now, what I've learned through my own journey with my children, actually, they don't hold shame. We as adults often create shame, whether it's about body parts, whether it's about toileting habits, whether it's about how they look, what those sort of things. It's these narratives that are in society. So I think what we need to do is have these conversations openly. We don't all talk about this all day over dinner, but have your safe spaces where you can. Don't shy away from the shame. I think that's a big starting point. As I say, I think, the digital age can start to, and that's why they're starting to look at research and things like that into where are these things distracting us and maybe causing issues, which we're starting to see evolve. I think, yeah, I mean, dietary stuff is a really controversial one, isn't it? We've heard obviously so much stuff around protein, then the fiber conversation. Fiber is obviously the conversation at the moment, ultra processed foods. I think all these things are not simple. I think what I always encourage people to think about is what can you add in
Hmm.
rather than what should we need to feel stressed about removing. So yes, I think understanding fiber, because lots of people don't understand there's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. I think having this conversation with kids from really young so they understand why we're eating these things. It's not just like you need your five a day, just eat them. We talk a lot in our house, obviously we're medical, so that kind of helps, but we talk a lot about why we eat these things and why our body needs it. So why are we eating protein? Why are we eating fiber? And actually kids are really receptive to this stuff. So I think there's a lot of things, I think yes, there's things we are doing wrong, but I also think there's just things that we could just think about introducing more and actually just encouraging that conversation. Think about how we can use the diet, but also improve toileting. I also think a massive problem is the potty training approach that we have here, particularly in the kind of UK, Ireland. I think there's this real pressure that once you're two, you should be
Oh
potty
yeah,
trained,
yeah.
right? And it's almost like, well, you're two and a quarter. But if you think about any other developmental milestone of a child, no, not all children walk at 9 months,
Hmm.
just 9 months. It's a huge window. And we all accept that about rolling and crawling and everything else. Whereas when it comes to going to the toilet, we're suddenly like, no, in this 3 days, you've got to learn to wee and
Lock
poo.
down the house.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's so alien to me that we expect a child to suddenly learn this new skill. And, a lot of constipation can start from these moments where they're actually afraid to poo on a toilet.
Anxiety, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then once that constipation can start within childhood, we can then end up with kind of issues around stretching of the rectum and then the signaling changing. And then again, these muscular changes because they have pain so I think that's a big thing I'm passionate about, that we don't feel pressure as parents that it's got to be perfected and it's not a reflection on your child. Sometimes it's just that it's too early. I've only got two kids that I've potty trained so far, and actually they did it a year difference. And that was the right time for them. So, and again, Not all kids are dry at night, if they're dry in the day. So it's complex. And I think there's too much pressure and not enough support of understanding really what that means physiologically for these children. So that's a huge thing. I think we're not doing amazingly well. And I think we could support parents better to get them on a good road going through life.
When should someone go and see someone like yourself, a physio, about it?
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, if your symptoms bother you, that's a good indication. I think if you're struggling, if you're kind of within that window of I'm either really struggling, I'm going far too much, but again, we might need you to see a gastro doctor as well to help with that understanding. Or you're really like, I'm barely going. Again, we might need a gastro or colorectal doctor to support us with doing some more testing and understanding. We also might work with dietitians. So if you're kind of out without those, it's becoming bothersome, you're struggling to open your bowels, it's become painful, you feel like you've also got maybe other symptoms, bladder symptoms, that are also linked in with what you're feeling. These are all good times to come and see us, or you have an incomplete emptying, or you've got a prolapse. These are all people that we would work with. And as I say, some people come to us first and we support them to get more diagnostics and more information. And sometimes people will go to the consultants first and then they'll come to us once we understand a little bit more that, yes, the muscles really need some kind of intensive input, and then we will help you with that.